Good. And let's move Teams to this screen. All right. Cool. So, hi everyone. We are going to talk about a topic that's okay. So we're going to talk about a topic that is not always very near and dear to people's hearts, because we're going to talk about how to graciously let people go out of your organization. So if people are in your organization, they have been doing quite some things. They are leaving all kinds of digital trail marks. So let's discuss how we can gracefully let those people go.
So hello also from my side. And before we start with the content of this session, just a couple of important information. First of all, please, if you want, please support the Chicago public schools. You can make a donation. You can find the QR code here on the slide, and also there is a link. That would be great if you're supporting the Chicago schools. The next also important topic is the sponsors, are our sponsors. So thanks to the sponsors for making this event possible, because it's really very important to have sponsors supporting it, and it's a lot of work organizing such kind of events. So thanks to them. And also help us improve the conference, so help also the speakers to improve themselves, to get better, give us feedback regarding the topics, regarding the session, regarding the online conference.
Not the color of her hair, please.
And there are also some raffles and giveaways. So if you have opted in at the registration, you can join the general channel at 350, and you can win some raffles. And also, if you're visiting the sponsors, there is a secret word, so you can get a secret word and also participate at a raffle. Marijn.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So a little refresher. I'm sure this is not necessary. If you can't hear us, feel free to turn on to go to device settings, turn us on. If you have any privacy issues, feel free to have your background blur out, or to not show your camera. I'm not sure if you can show your camera anyway when you're an attendee. If you have trouble hearing, let us know, then we are more than willing to turn on live captions. If you've got any questions, I'm moderating the chat. Oh, it's jumping. So I'm moderating the chat anyway. But you can always use the raise hand feature to get our attention as well. That's it. So feel free to join us at the virtual community. It's a fun place. So come over. If you're open for new work, talk to the recruiters that are there. So even if this is yet another one of those online conferences, there's still no reason to not get everything out of it that you can. And with that said, I am Marijn Somers. I have been doing SharePoint and Office 365 for over 14 years now. I'm from Belgium, so the other side of the world, where I am doing mainly productivity coaching in Office 365 in my own company. I've got a funny podcast that I'm doing together with Steve Dalby that we call Office 365 Distilled, where we always talk about governance, adoption, training kind of things in Office 365, and we always end with a whiskey tasting. So if you're interested in whiskey, if you're interested in a good bar type conversation, feel free to check us out on whatever platform that you listen your podcast to. And I also have Blame the End User together with Jussi Mori, who is one of the craziest Finnish people that I know. And if you know any Finnish people, you know they're all crazy, but he's definitely the craziest that I know. Where we try to look at certain issues and then we try to blame those on the end user. Of course, that doesn't work, so we always have to blame ourselves in order to do those things.
Yeah, the combination of whiskey and podcast sounds really interesting. So yeah, it's a really nice thing. Let me also introduce myself. My name is Corinna Lins. I'm from Germany, not from Belgium. And now I'm very happy because the weather is getting much more better than it was in the last weeks. I'm working as a modern workplace consultant at MSG Services. It's a consulting company in Germany. And I started, I think, more than 8 years ago with SharePoint, SharePoint consultancy, and moved more and more to Microsoft 365. And in the past years, I focused a lot on developing solutions in modern collaboration and also a lot of user adoption topics. And when I still have time, I'm also organizing some community events. Some of them are in English, some of them are only in German, and I'm also blogging on my website.
All right.
Okay, so let's take a short look on the agenda. First of all, we wanna talk about why is a good offboarding process so important. After that, we will take a short look at organizational and technical aspects in the offboarding process, and also important steps to take for offboarding your employees. And at the end, we also want to give you some tips and tricks. So before we start talking about onboarding, let's think about employees working in a company. So from the moment they start joining an organization, they start creating content. They are writing emails, they are sending documents, they are storing them in OneDrive, in SharePoint, and probably every company also has other systems, other tools where employees are storing their data. In the Microsoft 365 context, we also have the Power Platform, so the end users start creating Power Apps and flows. They are creating Sway presentations or forms. And this is just the Microsoft 365 perspective. And of course, we also have other tools. And it's very important to think about all these things when we also talk about offboarding.
Exactly. So if we take a look at the modern collaboration architecture, if you don't know what this is, Microsoft has a bunch of really cool information, really cool slides available around the MOCA framework. And this is how you could set, or how you could take the Office 365 environment and implement that to how you work within your organization. And it's divided in 4 different pillars. So you got the individual who works in a team to do modern teamwork, who could also participate in certain communities. And of course, we also have our organizations that enable that teamwork, that community, and the individual itself. Now, we are looking at that individual. So we are trying to offboard a certain individual. So we have to take a look at the whole architecture if we want to do that. So if you're looking at that individual, that person has certain characteristics, those skills, experiences. And because of that, this person is trying to do a number of things to be productive. That person is trying to store documents somewhere. It's trying to create documents. He's or she is participating in meetings. automating tasks, things like that, managing their own time. So they're doing all kinds of things, and they're leaving all kinds of digital trails in order to do that. And here you see a bunch of those tools that you can use for that. So we've got Outlook, we've got OneDrive, we've got SharePoint, we've got the Office suite, we've got Teams, we've got the Power Platform in order to do all kinds of things. So what happened? The employee has won the lottery. The employee is saying, okay, look, dear CEO, dear boss, I don't have to work anymore. So see you later. And I'm just gonna buy some gold chains and sit at the swimming pool. So
yeah, that's would be maybe very easy. So maybe we could just delete the user, and then yeah, the user account is deleted. He has no more access to the data. Yeah, that's an option, but we want to ensure that intellectual property is maintained. So this means employees are generating lots of data information, and there is important information, and we don't want to lose it, even if it's on a OneDrive. Yeah, OneDrive is the personal personal business document storage, but even if it's on OneDrive, it always happens that employees are storing their important information. They are sharing it with a couple of people, and then yeah, they are leaving, the account is deleted, the information is lost. So yeah, we don't want this. And that's why a good offboarding process is very, very important. And if you just delete the user, like my recommendation from before, it's not so good, because you will lose content if you have important data, emails, that maybe data that has to be compliant, you will lose this data. And yeah, that's yeah, it's not corresponding to the ISO norms. And also OneDrive documents, so they are lost. You will also lose functionalities. Think about Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate. If there are some owned solutions by the user that is deleted, yeah, the owner is deleted and there is no other owner for this solution. Then you also have connectors and third-party integration, but also simple forms. Like yeah, Microsoft Forms can get lost. And of course you will also lose governance, because for example, if there is a team and the person who has just left the company is owner of this team, he's not there anymore, who will manage this team? So you will lose governance. Of course you have the option to do in the administration to add new owners, but this also is yeah, you have to do it. Until you don't do it, you will not have an owner for the time, and that's why it's very important to think about this. And yeah, when we are talking about offboarding, we have two main aspects. We have the organizational steps for the offboarding, and we have the technical steps. So when we talk about organizational steps, we have a lot of organizational questions that we have to ask ourselves. It starts with governance questions like, how long do we want to keep content on OneDrive? Do we have data classification, different data classification classes in our documents? Do we need to inventorize what is in there? And also to see, okay, maybe to have some reports, who is the owner of a team, of a site, and who will get the ownership in future when someone is leaving the company. And on the other side, you also have compliance questions. For example, yeah, if someone important, for example, the CEO, is leaving the company, can we just delete that mailbox that contains a lot of important, relevant information, maybe in the, I don't know, in the medicine or in the pharmacy, some patent information. So you cannot delete this information. So these are just some questions from the organizational part, and of course you have to think much more on the organizational topics when you're thinking of offboarding. And yeah, we also have the technical steps that we have to do.
Yes, so as Corinna said, like the organizational steps are super important because they really talk about what do you want to do as a company about all that classified data. Now, the technical steps, thankfully, are pretty easy. I think that those questions, those governance questions are more difficult. The technical steps are pretty easy most of the time. So if we just take a look at what's out of the box, so out of the box in the admin center, we can delete a user, and that will take us through a little wizard where we can do all kinds of things with Mailbox, with OneDrive, where it will release the license and also delete the user in Active Directory. So deleting that user will already take care of a number of steps for us that we don't have to do. So we can just delete that user. I'm just gonna give you a little demo about that. So I'm here in my own tenant, in my admin center, and here I've got this person Lloyd. Lloyd is leaving the company. So what I can do is I can hit delete user, and this is gonna bring me through that little walk around thing, where it says, okay, if there are any email aliases, I can choose to remove those. He doesn't have any. If there are specific mailbox delegate permissions, I can also change those as well. OneDrive, so I want to give another user access to this person's OneDrive. So for example, I want to give myself access to his OneDrive, or better, his boss or the CEO, Ari. I'll give him access to his OneDrive. And then I can also choose to give another user access to his email. And that will bring me to another little walkthrough where I've got a few steps saying, okay, I can give email access to another user. For example, here might also Ari be the person. So Ari will get access to the mailbox of Lloyd in this case. I could also create a shared mailbox so that we've got more than one person to go to that mailbox. This only works if there's less than 50 gigabytes in the mailbox. We'll cover that later on as well. I can have some automatic replies. So this is something that's generated automatically. We can just set that up to email in the organization, outside the organization, do some things with aliases if we want, and then we can finish this off. Transfer ownership, and I can assign and convert. So what will happen if I click on this button? So you'll see here, it's updating the shared mailbox. It is gonna unassign the license, and there was an issue with the mailbox, but that's okay. I just created that user earlier today, so that's why it crashed that part. But you see that it unassigned the license. It gave that OneDrive access to Ari, and it set these automatic replies on. So that is all taken care of. We don't need to worry about that anymore. So let's jump back to our slides. So we saw that there's an easy way to handle Outlook, to handle OneDrive, to handle or license, to handle Active Directory. But there are a number of things that are not in there. Like, for example, any personal content that's on Sway, that's on lists, that's on forms, or any business content that might be in a team, that might be in the Power Platform. So you need to make sure that if this is certain content that was made available by this user, that it will not be available anymore when you delete the user. So Corinna also mentioned this earlier. So if you've got, in our case, Lloyd, that we just used as an example, if he bought or if he got the license to have access to a certain third-party tool, and other people would be using or consuming that third-party tool by inside a flow or something, well, that will not work anymore once that person is deleted. So really take a look at how this works. Now, there might also be a better way.
Yeah, so Marijn showed you how to delete a user. But yeah, you can take it step by step. And first of all, think about if you really need to delete the user from the beginning. So our recommendation is to reset user's password or block sign in and initiate sign out before you start deleting. Because when a user leaves the company, you have a lot of process, like you've already seen it in the slide before. So then you also have mobile devices, so enrolled mobile devices, and you also need to remove company data from that devices. This step is also very important. After that, you can and you should change the mailbox to a shared mailbox if there is important information in this mailbox, and also set an out of office message. You need to give access to the right people to the OneDrive, and you also should check if other services are running, and also things like Power Platform solutions. And of course, you can do all this also with PowerShell and not only the UI.
Exactly, and that is definitely our main thing that we want to mention. Like, really try to automate as much as possible. Definitely, if you're in a larger organization, try to automate that as much as possible. Have a report that runs to see if there are aliases, if the person has delegated permissions, if the person has any flows running under his name. You can all script that out. Now, we are just gonna look at those 5 steps here, and we're just gonna take those really like a little deep dive into those things. So what do you need to do? So first, reset the password and block sign in. So this person has said, okay, I'm going to leave the company. The first thing that you need to do is make sure that this person cannot access the company data anymore at the time when that person is leaving. Super important. So 2 ways: you could either reset the password, or you could block the sign-in. Microsoft really recommends to reset the password, because if you reset the password, you will know the password. That person will not know the password anymore. So you are now, as an administrator, you're now in charge of that user account. So you can do whatever you want with that user account. If you block sign-in, you don't have any access anymore. Now, definitely disable the self-service password reset. Otherwise, that person can just go back in and reset their password again, and then they will have access again. So that's definitely not what you want. And the other thing that you want to do is you want to initiate a sign out. So that means that that person will be signed out from all his devices, from all his sessions that are running. This might take 30 minutes, but this is definitely the best part. Otherwise, you might have a person that will still have access for like 14 days, maybe, to still access all the company data. So you don't want that. You want to actually sign that person out so that they can't go in anymore. So as I said, make sure that you don't have self-service password reset enabled. Otherwise, if you're gonna reset that password, that person can just reset that password as well. So you can do that in Azure AD. And then the next step is to, if you're running Intune, if you're running Endpoint Manager, to remove the company data from all the devices. So that person might have an iPad, for example. So you really want to wipe the data, the company data from that iPad. What about any unmanaged devices? So this is also kind of like an organizational thing that you need to think about. So for example, I've got a few customers that have E3 licenses and they let people install the Office suite and the OneDrive sync on their own unmanaged devices. That's okay, it's a small company, it works. But once those people leave the company, how do you want to manage that access to OneDrive, to their mailbox, to their Office installation? What do you want to do with those things? So think about that before you move on. And then the next step is email. So you're now the owner of that mailbox, so you can do all the things. So the first thing you need to do is activate automatic replies, so that everyone who mails to the mailbox will get a nice message saying, okay, this person doesn't work here anymore. You need to do something else. Then if the mailbox is less than 50 gigabytes, 50 gigabytes is a lot. But if you have a person that has been in the organization for 20, 30 years, it might be even bigger. You want to transfer that mailbox into a shared mailbox. So in that case, you can actually give access to a number of people. They can go in there. You can actually keep that mailbox for as long as you want, because it's now a shared mailbox. You don't have to pay a license for it anymore. So you can also like get out of that license requirement, because it's not a user anymore. It's a shared mailbox. And then you can just keep it for how long that you want. Optionally, you can also forward incoming email to somebody else, but that means it can't be a shared mailbox anymore. It has to be the mailbox from that person. Otherwise, this will not work. And then, of course, you need to have that license still linked to that user account. But it's an organizational question. What do you want to do? Do you want to make sure that everyone who mails, that you get that email and that you can do something with it, or do you just want to like provide automatic replies? And then the next step that you also want to do is you want to hide that person from the address list, so that if internal people are looking that person up, they will not find it, so they will not be able to send email to that person anymore. The next step would be OneDrive. So that covered everything from Outlook, from emails. Now we can go to OneDrive, the personal storage for that person's files. It's super easy to just go into admin and to provide access to a number of users to that OneDrive for that person. That's one thing that you can do. What I've also seen other organizations do is to write a little PowerShell and to actually migrate that all those files from that OneDrive into another location, into another person's OneDrive, or to a non-cloud connected hard disk, for example. So I've seen that. I've seen a team do that. That they would just have like this shared hard disk in the physical space where they work, and they would just copy everything on there, and then everything will no longer be in Office 365, but will still be. People could still grab that information if they need to have it. Now that is available. Those files, and that could go from 30 days till 10 years, because for some people, like for example that CEO that we talked about earlier, you really want to keep that information maybe for a long time. Maybe you need to keep that information for a really long time. as well. Maybe there are some regulations that you need to keep. Now, what is important with OneDrive is how do you want to manage the shared files? So if I have my OneDrive, I'm sharing a bunch of files from my OneDrive to other people. For example, if you are creating a meeting with other people and you record that meeting, that recording will be saved in your OneDrive and shared with a bunch of people that were in the meeting as well. Now, if you leave that company, those other, when your OneDrive is deleted or is no longer available, that shared file is no longer available either. So people don't have access to that recording anymore. So what do you want to do with those things? How long do you want to keep that content available? Think about that. So how does that work technically? When you've given ownership to, you've been given ownership to a OneDrive, you will get a nice email where you can click on a link and you will actually see all the files on there. Super easy. So all things governance-wise, so really think about that retention setting. So the counter starts when you delete the user. It takes a little bit of time. Minimum value to keep the files is 30 days. Maximum value is 3,650 days, which would be 10 years. So think about that and really think this through, because this might be different for different kinds of people.
Okay, let's take a look at the next step. Other services. The first important service is Microsoft Forms. So if the user leaves the company and if that person has created a form where there are already a lot of responses, but yeah, he just left the company and you need to have access to the responses of that form. So there is no notification and you have to do a manual action. It's also kind of weird because there is a special link. So it's the link that you can see here in the slide. And if you're accessing that link with the email address of the original owner, of course you need to be an admin, then you will get access to that form and then you can change the ownership of that form.
Can I just interrupt you really shortly, because very important, the person, so the original owner needs to be somebody who is deleted.
Yes,
because you can't just go in there and as an admin and just take a look at all the other people and take a look at what they have running for forms. Yes. You can only do that when the person is deleted.
Yeah, so if the user, if the person is blocked, it's not working yet. Yeah, and that's if you can switch to the next slide, that's how it looks like. So it's just the forms UI, and you can see there in the UI that the forms is belonging to someone else, and then you can transfer the ownership of that form. Yeah, so it's pretty easy, straightforward. You just need to know it. Then another important service is the Power Platform. So Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI. And if you're creating a flow or an app in Power Apps, you will have the ownership on it until you change it or you add additional owners. And also all the connectors that you're using, if you're sending an email, if you're sending on Teams notifications, all these connections will run on your name. So if you are leaving the company, everything is running on your name and no one else. If there is an error in that solution, no one else will get access until an administrator is managing the access. So that's why we also recommend that to have some PowerShell to change ownership when a user leaves the company. So you can have some, either you have some default accounts, either you will transfer the ownership to the manager of the user. So I think this is a governance question you have to answer for your own, and then implement it. And it's also important to change the connectors, because also, like I've said, the connectors are also running on the user. So yeah, you have to go through the workflow and change ownership, change connectors. Either do it in the workflow, in the UI, or in PowerShell. So when we're talking about governance in Power Platform, it's very important to develop a strategy for supporting development in the Power Platform. So in the Power Platform, you have the environments. You can create different environments. So the environments are, let's say, different areas where you can develop your solutions. And it's important to have them because you can target different audiences. For example, the HR department, probably they will have complex processes, and they will use some connectors. I don't know, for example, an SAP connector, but not every user should use an SAP connector. And if you want to define who is allowed to use what, you can define DLP policies. You can define these policies in the Power Platform. You can define them in the different environments, and then you can give access to users in the environment. If you're, like I've said, if you have the solutions, add at least a second solution owner. And if you want to track what is happening in the Power Platform, you're also having the analytics. So it's you can access the Power Platform analytics directly in the Power Platform Admin Center, and it gives you an overview of what flows are running, what owners are active, and stuff like this. So the analytics, they are good, but you can also improve it, because there is also a better way to do it. You can do it with by using the Power Platform COE toolkit. So the Power Platform COE toolkit is a solution. It's from Microsoft. You can find it also in the Microsoft documentation, and it's also very well documented. The idea of this toolkit is that you have different components. You have core components, you have governance, nurture, theming, innovation. And the idea is that you're getting different solutions for your reporting and your analytics. For monitoring, but also for governance. Then there is also a Power BI dashboard. This one is really nice, so you can see it here in the screenshot. With the Power BI dashboard, you can monitor governance and govern, and you also can you can extend this Power BI solution. So it's just a starting point from Microsoft to give you an idea how you can manage all these things. Okay, so other things you should be aware of. If you're still running an on-premises Active Directory, you have to delete or deactivate users in your local directory, so in your on-prem directory. And this also means that either you have to wait until the synchronization takes place to Azure Active Directory, or you have to do you have to run it by PowerShell and do an Azure Active Directory synchronization. Another important thing is also Skype for Business or Teams. So if you're using calling numbers in Teams or in Skype for Business, and they are associated to the user, as soon as you delete the user, the calling numbers will be released. And last but not least, Microsoft Lists is just an important thing to know, that if you are using Microsoft Lists, the personal, you can use lists in a team, but you can also use personal lists. And if you're using personal lists, they are stored in the user's OneDrive. Okay, so if you are, so probably every one of you is working with SharePoint, with Microsoft Teams. Here, the main information is that the documents that are stored here are shared workspaces. So users are storing the information, data, but it's a shared workspace and it's the company's intellectual property. So unless you don't have any special regulations, you don't need to do anything with the data that was stored by a user in SharePoint and Microsoft Teams, because yeah, the user is leaving, the name is still there, and the data is also remaining because these are shared workspaces. Okay, so now if let's make a short wrap up what you have to do. So if you've done all the recommended steps, and probably there are still also further steps depending on the systems and the tools you're using in the company. If you're done with all the steps, you can start removing licenses, because yeah, licenses are also you have some costs, and yeah, you want to remove them and assign licenses to other new employees. If it's allowed and the regularities allow you, then you can also initiate the account deletion process. This may sometimes take some time, but yeah, that's the last step after you've done all the technical steps that are needed. Okay, so there are also some things you can improve in future offboarding. So first of all, discuss it in your governance board, because it's very important to discuss about the process, how the offboarding is working in your company, and it's a lot about the organizational thing and not so much about the technical thing, because the IT admin knows what he has to do if you say, okay, please deactivate the account, but it's important to have a process and also to improve it. And of course, to document it. And please, automate where possible, automate as much as you can with PowerShell, because it's much more easier to have 1 million steps that have to be done in the UI. Probably you can do it also in the UI if you have a small company, 10, 20 employees. You will not have so many people that win in the lottery or are leaving the company. But if it's a bigger company, it's a lot of our overhead. What you need to do.
Exactly. Now, also one step that you could also do before that person leaves the company. So if they give their notice, they will probably stay in the organization for a number of days. So what you could do is you could look at insider risk management. You could take a look if you can set up a number of indicators. This requires an extra license, but what you will get is you will get an email every time somebody, for example, starts sharing content with lloyd@gmail.com, for example. So you will notice when that person starts to offload information that they might want to bring to their next job. So maybe they're leaving this consultancy company, they're going to another consultancy company, but they also want to keep a bunch of their data, and they're starting to download a lot of content. They start to email content to another account, or sharing OneDrive folders with their own personal email address, for example. So this is something that you could do, is to really take a look at, okay, is this person taking a number or taking knowledge with them to the competition? So important thing to look at as well, or to think about anyway. So next to that, we've got a number of references. So this is just if you want to know more about the things that we've been talking about. There are links to the Center of Excellence kit, or to how Microsoft says that you should offboard users. And definitely take a look at that, see how you can take that information and use it for your own organization. You might be a small organization who don't have a lot of people leaving, so you might want to do things manually instead of creating big scripts, but you could also do it in another way. Now, also as a kind of thing to leave you with, even when people are leaving, still please be nice to people. So when they do win the lottery, that they don't dump a number of tons of manure on your lawn, or if they don't go defecating on your desk after they win the lottery. So if you please just be nice to people, then you won't have things like this as well.
Yeah, so thank you for attending the session. We still have a couple of minutes, so if you have any questions, any further questions, please use this time to ask your questions in the chat. So Marijn will take a look in the chat. I don't know if we already have some questions.
No.
Not yet. Okay, then ask your questions now.
Yeah, everybody's been on mute, so and I shouldn't say all on mute, but so I think it's time just to tell them to either unmute and or feel free to chat a question. Great presentation, great session, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh. Is reset password faster than block sign-in? Yes, if I'm not mistaken, it's there immediately, but I could be mistaken. So feel free to try it out. But if I'm not mistaken, it is a little faster. Now the main benefit is that you are now in control of that account. So that person, because this will still take a few minutes. But yeah, the most important part is you now have the email address and the password. So you are now in control of the account, and that person isn't anymore. But it will still take a few minutes to actually happen, especially if that person is using multiple devices and multiple sessions and things like that. We use both, is what John Seaver says. Yeah, sounds like a good idea. I'm sorry, I've got this burning feeling in my eye. We have an environment that we need to sometimes leave access to their email, but would like to remove access to shared mailboxes. Is there a better way to get mailboxes? A person has mailbox permission that is faster than get mailbox in PowerShell. Really good question. I don't know. I also use that one in my script to like get all the mailboxes that person has access to. So if there's a better way, I would like to know it as well. But this is what I'm using as well. So.
With that said, I'm just going to say that we're at the roughly the top of the hour slash. If anybody has any other questions, obviously feel free to throw them in here right now. But we do want to thank everybody here for attending. The next sessions should begin at the top of the hour, which is 10 minutes. Thank you guys for flying in from Germany. And where was it you guys flew in from? Germany and
Belgium. Yeah.
Thank you for flying into Germany and from Germany and Belgium. Have a safe flight back home.
Thank you.
No, so what time is it? 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock?
It's almost 9 o'clock.
Almost 9.
In the evening. Yes.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your time with you. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for the moderation, and thank you for attending the session to our attendees.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
And again, everybody can stay in chat. It's just letting everybody who needs to take a bio break, etc., move on.